The WNBA just witnessed one of its most shocking moments when Sue Bird seemingly turned her back on Caitlin Clark during a live broadcast that left fans absolutely stunned. What she said about Paige Bueckers sent shockwaves through the basketball world and exposed a deeper divide that nobody saw coming. This wasn't just another retired player giving their opinion. This was Sue Bird, the voice of women's basketball, essentially telling millions of fans that their support for Clark might be misplaced. The fallout has been explosive, and what happened next reveals everything wrong with how the league treats its biggest star. Before we dive into this controversy, hit that like button if you're Team Caitlin and let us know in the comments what you think about Sue Bird's shocking statement. The reaction from fans has been absolutely wild, and you won't believe what some people are saying. When Sue Bird stepped up to that microphone, she knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't some casual conversation or off-the-cuff remark. She deliberately chose her words on a major platform, suggesting that Paige Bueckers deserves the same level of attention and coverage as Caitlin Clark. Think about that for a second. Here's a player who hasn't even proven herself in the WNBA yet being compared to someone who literally transformed the entire league in her rookie season. Bird didn't just praise Bueckers, she implied that the media and fans have been somehow unfair by not giving her equal treatment. The audacity of that statement hit different because of who Sue Bird is. She's not just any former player, she's been positioned as the ultimate authority on women's basketball for years. When she speaks, the league listens. When she pushes a narrative, it becomes gospel. So when she suggested that Paige's popularity has been underrated and undervalued, it felt like a direct attack on the organic movement that Clark created. But that wasn't the whole story. The timing of Bird's comments couldn't have been worse. This happened right when Clark was taking a well-deserved break after carrying the Indiana Fever to relevance for the first time in almost a decade. Instead of celebrating what Clark accomplished, breaking 62 records, driving attendance through the roof, and making the WNBA must-watch television, Bird chose that moment to shift attention to someone who hasn't even stepped on a professional court yet. The disrespect was so obvious that even neutral fans started calling it out. Social media exploded with people pointing out the hypocrisy. How can you say someone deserves equal coverage when they haven't earned it yet? Paige Bueckers might be talented, but talent alone doesn't create the phenomenon that Clark has become. What makes this betrayal even more shocking is the Connecticut connection that nobody wants to talk about. Sue Bird played at UConn, Paige Bueckers plays at UConn. Suddenly, Bird's comments don't look so innocent anymore. This looks like the old guard trying to protect their legacy and push their chosen successor into a spotlight she hasn't earned. The UConn Mafia strikes again, and Caitlin Clark becomes collateral damage in their campaign to maintain control over women's basketball narratives. It's the same pattern we've seen before. When someone from outside their circle starts dominating, they find ways to diminish that success while propping up their own. The numbers tell a story that Sue Bird apparently wants to ignore. When Caitlin Clark plays, arenas sell out. We're talking about 16,000 fans per game in Indiana. Numbers the Fever hadn't seen in their entire history. Television ratings jumped 21% across the league, driven almost entirely by people tuning in to watch Clark work her magic. Her jersey became the hottest selling item in women's basketball before the league even figured out how to keep them in stock. Meanwhile, what has Paige Bueckers done to deserve equal treatment? She had one 44-point game and a loss where she disappeared when it mattered most. Her team has won 9 games all season. 9. While Clark was leading Indiana to the playoffs, Bueckers was putting up empty stats on a team going nowhere. The comparison isn't just unfair, it's insulting to what Clark has accomplished. What happened next would shock everyone. The backlash against Sue Bird was immediate and brutal. Fans who had respected her for decades suddenly saw her differently. Comment sections filled with accusations that she was jealous of Clark's rapid rise, that she couldn't handle someone from Iowa becoming the face of women's basketball instead of another UConn product. Even some of Bird's longtime supporters admitted she went too far this time. The damage to her reputation happened in real time as people realized she wasn't the unbiased voice of reason they thought she was. She had an agenda, and that agenda didn't include celebrating the player who single-handedly brought more attention to the WNBA than anyone in the last decade. But here's what really exposed the truth about this whole situation. When you look at how organic Clark's rise has been versus the manufactured push for Bueckers, the difference becomes crystal clear. Nobody had to tell fans to buy Clark's jersey. They just did. Nobody had to convince people to watch her games. They planned their entire days around them. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you check is when Caitlin Clark is playing. That's not marketing. That's not media manipulation. That's genuine excitement for a player who delivers every single time she steps on the court. Compare that to the forced narrative around Bueckers. Despite all the hype from people like Sue Bird, despite all the attempts to elevate her to Clark's level, the audience just isn't there. The ratings don't spike when she plays. The arenas don't sell out. Social media doesn't explode with her highlights. You can't manufacture that kind of organic support no matter how hard you try. The most revealing part of this controversy is what it says about the WNBA establishment's attitude toward Clark. Instead of embracing their biggest star since Diana Taurasi, they seem determined to find ways to diminish her impact. Sue Bird's comments weren't made in a vacuum. They're part of a pattern we've seen all season. Former players, coaches, and media personalities constantly trying to redirect attention away from Clark toward literally anyone else. It's like they can't accept that someone from outside their approved circle became the face of the league. The jealousy is so transparent, it's embarrassing. Here's a player who brought unprecedented attention to women's basketball, who made casual sports fans actually care about the WNBA, and instead of celebrating that success, the old guard wants to tear her down. What makes Sue Bird's betrayal particularly painful for Clark supporters is the missed opportunity it represents. Imagine if Bird had used her platform to amplify what Clark has accomplished instead of trying to prop up someone who hasn't proven anything yet. Imagine if she had celebrated the fact that women's basketball finally has a transcendent star who captures mainstream attention without needing artificial promotion. Instead, she chose to create division where none needed to exist. She turned what should have been a celebration of the league's growth into another unnecessary controversy. The irony is that by trying to force Paige Bueckers into the conversation, Bird actually highlighted just how special and irreplaceable Caitlin Clark really is. The aftermath of Bird's comments revealed something even more disturbing about how certain media figures view Clark's success. They act like her popularity is somehow unfair to other players, as if fan support should be distributed equally regardless of who actually moves the needle. That's not how sports work. That's not how entertainment works. People gravitate toward excellence, toward players who make them feel something when they watch. Clark does that naturally. She doesn't need former legends advocating for her. She doesn't need media campaigns. She just needs a basketball and 40 minutes to remind everyone why she's different. The logo threes that make crowds lose their minds. The no-look passes that leave defenders confused. The clutch performances that turn regular season games into must-see events. That's what separates her from everyone else, including Paige Bueckers. Sue Bird's attempt to elevate Bueckers by suggesting she deserves similar coverage to Clark also exposed a fundamental misunderstanding of what drives fan interest. You can't demand attention for a player. You can't guilt people into caring. Either you capture their imagination or you don't. Clark captured it from day one without anyone telling fans they should pay attention. Her rookie season wasn't just successful, it was transformative. She took a franchise that had been irrelevant for years and made them appointment viewing. She turned Tuesday night games in Indianapolis into the hottest ticket in town. She made sports bars put WNBA games on their main screens for the first time ever. That's not something you can replicate by simply saying another player deserves the same treatment. The numbers don't lie, even if Sue Bird wants to pretend they don't exist. When Clark was on the court, everything changed. Attendance records shattered. Merchandise flew off shelves. Social media engagement went through the roof. The league signed better television deals specifically because executives knew Clark would deliver ratings. She became the first WNBA player that casual fans could name without thinking about it. Meanwhile, Paige Bueckers remains someone that only hardcore women's basketball fans really follow. That's not a knock on her talent. She might become great someday. But right now, today, she's not even in the same universe as Caitlin Clark when it comes to impact and influence. What's really telling is how Clark herself has handled all this drama. She hasn't responded to Bird's comments. She hasn't engaged in the manufactured rivalry people keep trying to create. She just keeps being herself, which is exactly what made her special in the first place. While others play politics and push narratives, Clark plays basketball at a level that makes everything else irrelevant. That's the difference between authentic stardom and the artificial kind some people want to create. You either have that magnetic quality that makes people unable to look away, or you don't. And no amount of advocacy from Sue Bird or anyone else can change that fundamental truth. The damage from Bird's betrayal extends beyond just this one incident. It reinforces the perception that there's an establishment in women's basketball that resents Clark's success because she didn't come through their approved channels. She didn't go to UConn or Stanford or South Carolina. She went to Iowa and dominated anyway. She didn't wait her turn or seek approval from the legends who came before. She just showed up and changed everything through pure talent and charisma. That threatens people who thought they controlled the narrative of women's basketball. It challenges their authority to decide who deserves attention and who doesn't. As this controversy continues to unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Caitlin Clark doesn't need Sue Bird's validation or anyone else's. Her impact speaks for itself in sold-out arenas, record-breaking television ratings, and a generation of young girls who now dream of playing basketball because they watched her play. That's a legacy you can't manufacture or redistribute to someone else just because you think they deserve it too. It has to be earned, and Clark earned every bit of attention she receives. The fact that Sue Bird can't see that or won't acknowledge it says more about her than it does about Clark or even Paige Bueckers. The future of women's basketball belongs to players who can capture the public's imagination the way Clark has, not through media campaigns or endorsements from legends, but through their play on the court and their ability to make people care. That's what Sue Bird seems to have forgotten in her rush to prop up the next UConn star. You can't force greatness. You can't demand equal attention for unequal impact, and you certainly can't diminish what Caitlin Clark has accomplished by pretending someone else deserves the same recognition without earning it first. The fans see through it, the numbers expose it, and history will remember who really changed the game versus who just talked about it. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Drop a comment below telling us what you think about Sue Bird's shocking betrayal and whether Paige Bueckers will ever reach Caitlin Clark's level. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story is far from over and you won't want to miss what happens next.